All right, welcome back, everyone. Vasim here with Tyler on this beta break. And this one, we're actually going to chat with the returning female champion of Method Underground, Cloe Coscoy. Welcome, Chloe.
Hey guys, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So we're going to get into all things, of course, Method Underground. It was a sick comp this year. And then get into Chloe and what Chloe's up to and beyond. So just for those of you who have been hiding under a rock and don't know who Chloe is, Chloe, just want to give everyone a quick introduction to who you are, what you're up to, and what you've done in the past.
Yeah, my name is Cloe Coscoy. I'm 23 years old and I grew up in the Bay Area. Started climbing when I was about 12 or 13 at this little local gym called Bridges Rock Gym in El Cerrito, and pretty quickly joined the competition team and kind of grew up doing the youth circuit and some USA climbing stuff there, but also a lot of like open competitions and festival style events and things, and it kind of naturally progressed into doing the open circuit and have been doing World Cups and international competitions for a few years now, but also I try to do a lot of like gym competitions and festivals and things like that, so it was pretty fun to come out for Method again this year.
Yeah, that's awesome. So did you just stop over at Method on your way to China? Like, so if you haven't seen, Chloe just competed, you were in the semis, right? At the
Yep.
first World Cup
Yeah.
over in China. Awesome. We'll get back to that a little bit later, but like, was that just kind of a hop over or you had to come back and defend your title? Like, you're like, I'm not letting someone else take my place.
No, so I actually committed to competing at Method like well before we knew what the World Cup selection would look like. We kind of only knew about a month beforehand whether we would or whether I'd get to go to China or not, and I knew I wanted to go to Method and teach a clinic as well for a few months now, and I knew the timing lined up where even if I did qualify for China, I could compete at Method. And it was just, I really enjoyed it last year. It was one of my favorite competitions that I did. I thought the setting was really good and it suits me well. And I also like going to the East Coast. So yeah, I figured it just made sense to go back. So yeah, I went from Salt Lake, which is where I'm living and training these days, from Salt Lake to New York slash New Jersey, did the Method competition, and then flew from there to China afterwards.
Racking up those frequent flyer points, I see.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah,
Tyler.
that's kind of a perfect segue. It's a bit out of order. I was saving this one for the end, but we're both Northeast climbers, and I talk a lot about how we're a little bit under the radar compared to California, Colorado, those areas. But I think that we've got a really awesome scene. Are there any key differences that you feel when you're in the Northeast or East Coast psych that make it stand out from when you're competing at other festivals or local comps?
Man, it's kind of hard to say specifically, but I feel like I don't I imagine that this just comes from having a pretty psyched group of like Northeast climbers, but I feel like the crowd and the energy at Method is just really good, and you can tell people are psyched to be there and psyched to see you like trying hard and doing cool moves. Um and I just appreciate that energy, so it was cool to be there for that.
Yeah, they've got to be pretty psyched to enjoy in the windowless basement. The I love a training dungeon, and Method certainly falls into that category.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, but yeah, the as we mentioned, reigning champion absolutely crushed it last year. It was great to have you back. I was bummed that I had to miss it. I was abroad at the time, but I caught up on the live stream. What I didn't get to see much of was the qualifying round. Would you mind taking us through that? What the what the format was for people at home and how the qualifying round went for you?
Yeah, so the format, we had 8 boulders in the women's category, I believe, and we just had to um we had 10 tries per boulder, try to do as many boulders as you can. Every boulder is worth the same amount of points, and it just kind of is broken down into how many boulders you do and then how many attempts it took you to do those boulders, and then how many zones and attempts to zone those boulders. Um And it was pretty good. I felt like it had been a while since I'd done any comps in that format, like the modified red point, and that's something I wouldn't say struggle with per se, but I'm just a little impatient when it comes to doing those rounds. I think in general, like it's best to kind of wait and be super patient and watch people get on the boulders, kind of figure out what your beta is going to be, and then try to do them without wasting too many attempts. But I'm kind of one of those who, as soon as the round starts, I'm just ripping through the boulders as fast as I can, and I don't worry too much about attempts. Maybe it's because I also felt pretty confident that I would kind of hopefully make the final, even if I let a few attempts go here and there. So I was not super patient on that end. Managed to do 7 of the boulders, and the 8th one I just kept falling, matching the finish, which was a bit silly on my part. I think I was having a lot of problems with my skin the week before, and I don't like to use like too many excuses or anything, but I did feel like I could have brought a chalk bag or something and made that a little better. But that's kind of one of those things again where I'm like, maybe not the most patient and maybe don't have the best tactics for the qualification, but I kind of was not too concerned about it. So it was nice to just kind of like dust off the cobwebs and try to execute on like a bunch of different skills boulders, I would say. Like none of them were particularly hard, but a lot of like little jumps and kind of different trick type moves. And so just kind of getting back in the groove of doing those kinds of climbs, it was nice. I mean, I enjoyed the qualification boulders a lot. They were super fun.
Yeah, I find with method that they're, because of the short ceilings, their climbs are typically short but sweet, right? They're not too high, but they really throw in some really challenging skills. And so I'm just curious, which one did you not top? Which one were you having trouble matching?
Yeah, the blue one that had the kind of like awkward coordination start. That one I did actually drop a few goes trying to do the beginning.
Okay.
I believe it was number 6 or 7, I don't know. But then the end, you just had to match a volume and kind of get really low and dangle it.
Hmm.
And it's just not exactly my forte. So definitely struggled there. But um, yeah, like I said, I was kind of maybe not taking it like as focused and seriously as I could have. I think that's like one thing I'm good at is like turning that on when I need to, but also when I feel like I have a little more margin to be able to kind of relax and ease into the round so that I have maybe a little more mental energy later on. But
Just have fun, right?
yeah, exactly.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah. I'm always curious about people's opinions on comp formats, and you brought up I think uh, people who are competing in World Cups pretty rarely have to do a modified red point round. It's something that we use for the youth climbers all the time, or we use the just a regular red point round for most of the citizens comps. Do you have a favorite comp qualifying round format? Like, do you prefer the World Cup kind of 4 on 4 off style?
I definitely prefer the World Cup format. I think just like not seeing other people do the boulders and not knowing exactly what you need to do kind of makes it a pretty cool and like unique mental space. I also think just for myself, it suits me the best. Maybe for one, because that's what I practice the most and what I'm used to the most, but also I think that I'm not always necessarily like the strongest climber, but I think I'm pretty good at committing to my beta and executing like what I have visualized and what I imagine is how I'll do a boulder. And I think that lends itself pretty well to the on-site format as opposed to like formats where you're kind of all climbing together and get to watch each other. So yeah, I like that the best. But modified red point, I think in terms of when you do get to watch, is probably my favorite like qualification for that type of like local competition, just because it takes out the question of which boulders do I have to do. You're like, well, in theory, I have to just do all of them, and then we'll see what happens. They're all weighted the same, so like if you can't do a particular boulder, you can usually make it up with like your skills on another set of boulders. So I do think it's a pretty good option for when it's not possible to run an on-site qualification like that. That would have been pretty messy with like so many people in that type of environment for sure.
So, and just a question, like in World Cup format, because we never see, no one broadcasts live the qualifications. Is it, it's all on site for qualies?
Yeah, so it's just 5 on, 5 off, and you have 5 boulders. You don't
Okay.
see anybody do the boulders. You don't know what the scores are, what you need to do. You just get on the wall.
Rotating through. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
So
it
it's so
5-5
yeah.
and not 5-4 or 4-4?
Yeah, it's 5
It's
5.
5-5 for qualies, and then in the semifinal we have 5 minutes but only 4 boulders, and then the final it's 4 minutes, 4 boulders, but you get a preview.
Right. Yeah. So
I
that much
I
I knew. I
yeah.
didn't know it was the same for qualies. Okay.
I follow the World Cups pretty close. I had no idea it was it was different time domains in each round. That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. The
Yeah.
semi it's also 5 minutes, but there's one less boulder.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, every
the
round's a little different.
That's nice. We tend to ask people this: do you have a preference of how many boulders per round? We've seen finals that have 3. We've seen qualifying rounds that have 5. Do you have a sweet spot for yourself?
Yeah, I'd say in general, I think I like the more boulders, the better. I mean, I like competing. I like being on the wall and uh, doing like these rounds. And so I love when there's 5 boulders. I haven't ever done rounds in competition that had more than that, but I'd imagine there's a point where it would get a little frustrating. But I do enjoy the five boulders, and for a final, I like 4. Also, I think like the final is maybe more mentally taxing, and it's hard to like, it's also longer, and so it can be hard to like be mentally in it for so long. So I'd imagine like it might be harder to do 5 boulders in a final, but 3 always feels a little short. I always feel like unless the setting is like perfect, it can be really hard to make it kind of a really nice round with different opportunities across each boulder when there's only 3 boulders. Like if they have one boulder which is too easy and everyone does it, then it really becomes like a 2 boulder round. Or if there's one that's way too hard and everybody ties and no one does it, then same thing. And 2 boulder, when it's coming down to 1 boulder, 2 boulders, it can be a little frustrating. But I feel like 4, they typically manage to find a good balance, and they're kind of opportunities across most of the rounds. So I like the formats as they are, I would say.
Awesome. Yeah. So moving along, qualifying round went well. I believe you qualified in 4th place. Am I?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was coming down to attempts on the tops there, and then I believe a few people had all the tops as well. So
Cool. Yeah. If it's all right, I would love to just go kind of boulder for boulder in the finals and just get your take on each of them. The first one that we had was dual text purple pinches with a lot of compression. Yeah. How did that one go for you? How'd you feel about it?
yeah, I'd say in the preview, I thought that the jump to the zone would be pretty important, and I knew I wanted to try and do that as quickly as possible. Like ideally flash to zone at least. Just because I felt like the beginning looked kind of awkward, and then the jump looked a little bit far. So I figured you wanted to not really waste too many attempts slipping around there. So I paid good attention to the start and really decided what I would do there. Um, and then the top I thought would be pretty straightforward, and I think it was, but I felt like I thought it might be tricky to get my right foot up when I was um, like crossed on this on the second, with my left hand on the second to last hold. I knew that I'd have my left heel or left foot on the zone hold, and I figured I'd need to get my right foot up onto that dual text thing, and I knew that I'd probably have some trouble with that. So I was thinking about during the round like compressing pretty hard and trying to be kind of aggressive about getting that foot up. Um, and then when it came down to actually getting on, yeah, the start I felt like was a little weird, but I was really like forcing myself to stay in it and kind of execute what I had read, because I was pretty confident it would work. So made it work to get to the zone on the first try, and then the getting the foot up did end up being pretty hard for me. So I kind of on the wall tried to adapt and try something else, because the zone or the foot up was feeling really aggressive. And then I think I reverted back to trying to get the foot up and fell doing that. And then the next try, I think I maybe only gave 2 tries on that boulder, because it was pretty physical to try and get that foot up from this really constrained kind of compression position. Second try, I managed to get the foot up, I think with my knee as well getting in there. So it was very aggressive and kind of full body intensive. I felt like that position was definitely a little scrunchy for me, and that's something that I'm working on. Being on the taller side is to try and be stronger in a very kind of balled up position. So it was I was thinking a lot about actively being really engaged, even though I was pretty uncomfortable and felt like being kind of boxed up a little bit. But then wasn't able to make that next sequence quite work. I think had I had one more try, I would have put my toe on the left hold instead of my heel, and I would have maybe given myself a little bit more room to get over. But it was pretty tiring to work through that upper section. So I don't know if I would have been able to do it, but I liked the
It
boulder
was
for.
interesting. Sorry, it was interesting at the end watching you look at the boulder for a while and ultimately decide to walk away. That was my Was that just
Yeah,
pure? It's tired. Not sure if I have another good go.
I think I had maybe 35, 40 seconds, and I think those Hail Mary attempts can be good, but especially that early in the round, you don't want to be doing that unless you feel like you actually have a chance to do it. There's a lot of climbing still left to go, and it's one thing to do that on the 4th boulder, but on the first one, if you're going to get on the wall, it should be to make progress. And I already had the zone, so the only thing to do from there was to top the boulder, and I didn't feel like with that little time and that little rest between my second attempt or the attempt before, I just didn't feel like that was smart at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Method is one of the few houses that do just 4 minutes, no plus time. They always kind of like to hold with whatever USAC is doing or World Cup's doing, and to kind of keep that kind of vibe with their set. But well, we did get a buzzer beater, not out of you, but out of Ross, and that was quite spectacular versus the plus 4. And I guess Austin Hoyt's was pretty close as well, but I was just. Did you see that dramatic Betabreak by Austin?
Yeah,
I saw a
yeah.
clip of it. It looked insane. I actually wanted to see. I only saw a really quick clip of it, and I wanted to see the whole thing because.
Yeah, Adam Shahar actually flashed it proper, which is insane. But yeah, Austin. Yeah. But yeah, that's a whole other story. But definitely, uh, you know, it's interesting how they try to force that. But yeah, Austin's a whole other story.
Yeah, ultra creative.
Yeah,
Moving along, boulder number 2 got into the nice walk across on those yellow volumey slab guys. Yeah, talk us through boulder number 2.
Yeah, I think I had felt like I hadn't been doing too much slab climbing in the past few months. I've been kind of working a lot on getting more comfortable doing steeper climbing and kind of grabbing worse holds, and sprinkling a little slab in where I could and where it made sense. But so I wasn't sure how I would feel on slabs in general throughout the comp, but um, I definitely felt really good on the slabs in the qualification. I didn't feel like those were too hard for me, and I felt like I had some margins there in terms of what I could do. So that definitely brought a little bit of confidence going into that boulder. I also, I think, knew that because it was a shared male female boulder, I expected that it would maybe be on the harder side, just to to make it good for the men's field as well. And then when I got on it, I actually felt like it was a lot easier than I expected. It was very like the feet were quite good. So I think if you were just kind of confident about like moving through them and stepping over each foot and like really committing over your feet, it wasn't too bad. I think I did it third go, and it was kind of just adjusting my beta every time. I tried different foot sequences, and then what I tried on the last try wasn't something that I had necessarily read, but it just kind of made sense um, as I was working through the different options of just kind of walking through each foot sequence. And yeah, in the end, I think I found that boulder not to be too hard, and I think the women actually maybe did a lot better on it than the men, which is cool.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was like, I typically find the shared slab boulders, the women always perform better, whether it's qualification or even finals. They didn't make any tweaks at all. Like, it was just like same boulder, and the women did way better than the men did. Yeah. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, but I think at least for myself, I feel like I do a good job of staying pretty patient on slabs, and also just spend a lot of time slab climbing, maybe not recently, but in the past. And I don't know, pays off, I guess.
Patient on the wall, but maybe not so patient in the
Yeah,
qualifying round. If
yeah,
you're gonna
exactly.
choose one of those, you've got the right one.
The right
Yeah, I
time.
think so.
Yeah. Boulder number 2 was a top for you. Super interesting one to watch, and I loved watching like the micro adjustments that you were making as you were stepping on the holds from attempt to attempt. I think that was what stood out to me is like the experienced slab climber, World Cup climber. I think that's that kind of skill that you develop. Super cool. Boulder number 3, we had the big macro holds, the yellow and blues. Let's start at your beta for that opening move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as soon as we were reading it, I saw a couple options there, and I felt like it would be pretty dramatic to try and like jump to yellow and catch the blue toes. I saw that as like maybe the first option that kind of was like obvious, but it seemed like the toe was close, and it felt like the hand was pretty bad, and like I knew that would work, but it seemed really hard. And whenever there's like coordination with holds that kind of face each other like that, I'm often looking at like whether I can stay on the first hold for longer and maybe stab a foot. Like that's a move that I do a lot, is to like go to a hand and stab the foot at the same time. Um, and I think I'm pretty good at like coordinating and like engaging in that position, but then also finding the foot when it's behind me. And in this case, the foot, like both of the holds were huge, so there was like quite a bit of margin in terms of being precise with either position. And so I was pretty confident that that wouldn't be very hard at all to stop like that. And I knew that that would be nice in terms of at least getting the zone quickly. So made that work every time. And then the next sequence, I knew like that was probably the move in the round that I was the most worried about. I would say like keeping tension just with a hand and a toe and without any like opposing foot to push from is pretty hard for me. And um like especially maybe the toe hooks tend to be like a little closer for me, and also I think it requires maybe like a lot of tension that I don't quite understand or don't like practice very much. I'm not sure. It's like something that I'm working on, and whenever I see it, I try to work through those like toe hook moves, but it's really hard to like move up when your tension is just going like sideways. And I think the right smear was really important, and I was like sort of trying to use it but didn't kind of exaggerate that. And that's one thing that I feel like has been a big lesson for me in my most recent competitions, was when I think about the subtleties of a move to try and kind of exaggerate and go to the extreme of that subtlety. So like there, like I knew I should smear, and so I think at one point I tried to smear a little bit, but didn't like fully commit to really pressing into that. And so that move, like going to the crimp off of the zone holds, didn't work for me. But I think that's something I'm trying to work on, is to lean into like what I see and like really, really commit to it, lean into it more than I have been.
Okay. Nice.
Thank you for that breakdown. That was,
Yeah.
yeah, really, really, really cool insight into like so much thought process and history of what you've worked on and what's going on in the moment. I think for the people who are maybe newer to the sport and maybe just saw you in method and are trying to figure out what's going on in a comp climber's mind, I think that's a really good example of all those different factors and details that are going on all at once and not at all. But yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. Man, yeah. Basim, anything to add on that one?
I mean, I just love the fact when I watched you go for that move, I say no, and then of course I go. When I watched you do the back foot on it, I'm like, I was just like, did she talk to anyone during the preview? Because it's like, what, like where? So it was essentially just you knew the move was there, but it just wasn't in your wheelhouse. So it wasn't one of your strengths. And so you're saying that because how tall are you actually? I didn't realize
I'm
you were.
5'9".
Okay. All right. So yeah. And then so when you start talking about the height, yeah, I have that issue myself as well. Tyler's like, yeah, just get small, like just compress.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm 5'10" and I complain about boxes every day.
yeah.
I don't say get small and compress.
So I get
I
it.
just
So
complain.
yeah. And so that, I mean, it's good to like hear, like I definitely wasn't going crazy in the fact that you just tried something completely different, not because you weren't having this conversation during preview or didn't see it. You just said, I see that, but I don't like it. I'm going to go this way with it. And it
Yeah,
worked. So that's pretty cool.
I think also I just was like, some of I'd say like coordination, jump moves in general are definitely a strength of mine, and that's one where like I saw that option and knew 100% I would do it on my first try, versus the toe hook. Like maybe I could have
Wow.
done, and I think I could have done it that way, but I just wasn't as confident that I would flash it. So it's just like weighing my options there for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, let's keep it moving because I really want to hear about boulder number 4 as well, which had the classic Lachey. Something we talk about on here all the time is comp style moves that come in and out of fashion, and the trend that I personally hope is dying out is the Lachey. Do you have how do you feel about that being the hot trend, or do you have feelings about trends in comp climbing in general?
Yeah, I mean, I like seeing like new moves pop up and then them kind of showing up in different places so that people kind of get an opportunity to try them. Like, it's one thing to see something in a comp and then it never shows up anywhere else, and then it's pretty hard to get on it and practice it and also compete on it. The Lachey, I feel like I it showed up a lot in World Cups last year for sure. I didn't do any World Cups last year, so I think I kind of kept like seeing them in the semis and the finals and thinking, "Oh, I wish like I could get on those because I like coordination and I like Lachey's." Um so I'm still here for them, but I get it. We've definitely seen a lot of them recently. That one I was like pretty unsure. The fourth boulder I was pretty unsure about. It was hard for me to tell how hard it was. Not the Lachey. I thought the Lachey looked not very hard because it was quite close. Like the holds you were going off were really good, and then the foot that you were landing on was really big, and it was pretty clear that you could like hang out in the corner and just use this like red hold to just sort of stabilize you in there. But I was really unsure about how the end of it would go. I knew I would get to the zone quickly, tried to flash to the zone because I knew at that point we were playing with attempts in the field. Like I knew some people had done the second one, but that was it. So we were all kind of tied with the top there. Um, so I knew the attempts would be important. The zone hold was really good, so I knew as long as I committed to like moving quickly, with my feet that I would hold the position to zone. And then the top, I knew I was going to try to do some type of kick to get to the finish hold, just because the hold you were going off was really bad. So it was hard to like try and move slowly at all. And the finish hold was really good. So it kind of gave you that impression that they wanted you to move quickly to it. So I think, yeah, first go up there, I actually felt really close. I was like, oh, that's it. I'll just do that on the next attempt. And then I had a little bobble on the second try. I think I was thinking too much about the finish sequence and like wasn't focusing on my present positions as much. So fell kind of early on the boulder, just rushing through part of the sequence, trying to get to the top. And then on the third go, just executed on that finish sequence, which I felt pretty confident would work, but there also wasn't much room for like your hands to slip, or the setup was not very forgiving at all. Like once you committed to doing this sort of kickback move, like if you kind of paused for a second or stopped or like shifted, then you were off. And so like when I was in it, I was making a very like concerted effort to fully commit through the entire sequence and not like pause if something fell off, because I knew that that would be the end of that try and I only had the one try left. So I was pretty psyched for that one to work. It ended up being like pretty far, the finish move as well. And so it was definitely a pretty hard move. I think like probably the hardest move that I did in the final. Obviously there were moves that I didn't do as well, and maybe those would have been harder for me, but
And you're talking the move to the finish hold was the hardest in the final. Yeah. There's a great slow-mo moment in the live stream of you sticking the finish hold and the scorpion position that you get into to find your balance. Really, really cool to watch. It seemed like the first move was pretty close, and then to the finish seemed much further. That was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think to the finish it was like pretty big. The hand was far, but also your foot had to be pretty far right. Like the more left your foot was, like that means that your hand is now like past your foot and you're going to barn door even more. And so like I barn doored obviously a little bit, but had my left foot been further in or right foot been further left, I would have not even been able to hold the scorpion. So I feel like the scorpion gives you like kind of a little bit of room to absorb the barn door. Like I could have also switched feet there and that would have worked also, but I felt pretty like as soon as I started barn dooring, I knew I was fine to stick the move, and I just needed to kind of let my body absorb the swing. But I think by that point, I was already like putting a lot of pressure through the right foot, right hand, that it kind of my body was like still absorbing the swing, but it was all looking pretty good in terms of staying on there. So I was psyched that one worked, and like it felt cool. It's always nice when you do like last boulder, not much time left. I knew it was hard. So I was pretty psyched with that. I figured that would maybe put me up in the first or second spot. So I was psyched for that.
It was that finish, the way you did that finish and the way that you started boulder number 3, certainly the steeziest way to get them done. So the style points for sure.
And I knew that on that first attempt on that last move on 4, when you came off of it, you're like, okay, I got it. You can see you made that adjustment and you're like, we got this. And you once again made the adjustment and locked it in. That was really good. Pretty cool. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's the finals round. Congrats on a great performance. It was really fun watching. And if I can just keep going with what your weekend was like, I think you were on a plane within like 72 hours of that event, and a little bit further east than the East Coast to China for the first World Cup of the season. My question there is, what is the difference in how you feel and how the atmosphere feels and how the boulders feel going from what is a pretty high level, but at the end of the day, still a local, single location gym finals straight into what is the highest level in our sport? Yeah. What does that feel like, that transition, besides the jet lag?
off of the win at Method, I definitely felt good and felt pretty confident, primarily actually from the qualification round. I felt like felt really solid and like comfortable on the slabs, comfortable on the coordination, which that was honestly like probably the biggest takeaway in terms of what I took towards the World Cup. Like the final, I think I did well and I was happy, but also there was kind of an element of luck also for sure. Like someone very well could have done the third boulder. Like I know I was outclimbed on the third boulder, outclimbed on the first boulder. Like the field was super strong. I think like I know like Jojo and Lucy were up there, I think, on the third one. They got to the crimps. On the first one, I know Nora was on the finish hold. So like that didn't end up mattering because they didn't top those boulders, but like so I knew there was like kind of an element of just like, oh, I maybe got also a little lucky on which boulders worked out and which boulders I actually did and led to top, which moves that I was able to do, which actually led to tops, as opposed to moves that people had on me that just didn't get rewarded. But I think so. I was mostly thinking about the qualification, and I felt like I just felt like really confident and comfortable on the coordination on the slabs. I was like feeling really precise and like I was doing a good job of knowing like where my body was in space and moving through positions. So that was like a nice takeaway. I think going into the World Cup, like I definitely felt like I put a lot of pressure and expectation on myself just because I hadn't made a semifinal since 2022, and I'd competed in 2023, didn't make any of the semis that year, and then didn't compete last year in 2024. And I really kind of had this out like lingering thought the past few years of like maybe I was just like better in 2022 and I don't have the level to be back in a semifinal. And I think deep down I like didn't think that was true necessarily, but it kind of felt like, well, the results keep showing, results kind of keep reinforcing that. So, like, why am I not able to make it back into a semifinal? And the qualification there was a little bit weird, but I tried my best to just kind of stay in it and like take the opportunities that I could on the wall, do the moves that I knew I could do. Um, and I do always feel like there's a little bit of an element of luck. Like there are some moves that I did that I could have also spent 4 or 5 minutes just not doing. But I was really psyched that it worked out. Yeah, a little bit of a weird round, but I was glad that I stayed present and made the most of it and was able to make it through the semi. I was feeling pretty sick throughout the weekend, which was unfortunate. The quali day was definitely the worst of it, but I was kind of concerned about how that would lead into the semi and everything. And I definitely felt that a little bit, but I think overall I was able to kind of mitigate that and put that aside as best I could and try to be in the moment. But I think my like power and maybe snappiness was definitely hindered a little, which was unfortunate. But I think the fact that it was able to still lend itself to a pretty good result was very promising in terms of the rest of the season and something I'm pretty excited about. I'm definitely super excited for the next one.
Absolutely. And how much time did you have to get over the jet lag? Tyler brought up jet lag. I mean, that's a serious.
Yeah. Yeah. So I competed at Method on Saturday, did the clinic on Sunday, and then flew out Monday at like 5 a.m. To Shanghai from Newark. Got there. That was a really long travel day, too. We had like 20 plus hours of flying, plus like another 3 hours once we got to Shanghai. We had to drive to Kachao, which is where the competition was another 3 hours of driving. So that felt like a really long day. So I got there I skipped a day, got there Tuesday afternoon. So I climbed really lightly on Wednesday. Still was feeling like definitely tired, maybe a little under the weather as well. So climbed on Wednesday the next day for just an hour, hour and a half, tried to activate a little bit, and rested on Thursday, competed Friday, Saturday.
Not enough time. That's crazy. Wow. And you
Yeah.
and the on that little sleep to make the semis, that's says a lot. I mean, you're on your A game right now. It's awesome.
Yeah, it was kind of like we were waking up at like 5, 6 a.m. anyways, and the qualification was at like 8 or 9 a.m. So in terms of like being ready for qualies, it was actually kind of nice as opposed to going the other way, but definitely not ideal. I think the jet lag, it felt like maybe didn't affect me as much as being like a little sick for sure, but I think the combination of all of it was not very helpful in terms of physically feeling good. I know on Thursday night before the quali, I was like, oh boy, this is going to be a rough one. I'm like trying to kind of convince myself that it's okay and that I can make the most of it regardless and be like even if I don't feel perfect, that I can still like execute on easier moves and things. And I'm glad it worked out, but could have very easily gone the other way, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And from the China World Cup, you hopped another flight over to Japan where you're training at the moment. Is that correct?
Yeah, much shorter flight, but it still felt like a really long travel day. I think we had like a long drive, plus I got here kind of late. But yeah, I'm in Tokyo for the next 2 weeks to just train here. Like the climbing here is just so good. It's so like the movement is so intentional and everything is so well set, and there's just so much hard climbing. So I'm hoping I'll get a little power boost, refine my skills a little bit, and then I'll be in Salt Lake for 3-4 days, and then I'll head to Brazil from there. So kind of tight on
Yeah,
time,
nice
but
little
also
3-4 day reset.
yeah. Also, it's like that was a decision I made. Like I didn't have to come to Japan, but I think training wise it'll be really valuable. So I think it'll be worth it.
That's interesting that you're like, Salt Lake is training ground, right? It's like the training hub for the US. And you're like, but I'm going to, Japan. And like, so what is it about? You made a couple of comments about the setting, but like, what is it about? I think just watching, in the men's finals, there were 2 or 3 chap
3, I
champions
think. Yeah.
in the finals. I don't
Hmm.
think there were any in the female though, right?
Miho
Miho,
and
sorry.
Mao, yeah, and
Yeah.
Melody. Three in the
Three.
girls. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, that says a lot. And that's not like just this one. It's all the time. They're representing and they're always rolling deep. And then, so you think that there's a lot to be learned from their training facilities and their training that we could bring to the US?
Yeah, I think just the density of hard climbing is just completely unmatched. Like say at B Pump, for example, which is like the main gym that people come to climb at, there's like, I'm just throwing numbers out there, I'm not sure exactly, but there's like 10 different grades, and I climb maybe consistently like the 5th hardest grade or maybe the 6th hardest grade, but then there's an equal number of boulders which are each like ranked harder and harder and harder, that are like 4 or 5 different grades above what I'm normally climbing. So just like that amount of hard climbing there is never in the US, I feel like. Sometimes like you'll go to a gym and maybe they have their like equivalent of a black tag and it's just the hardest one, but some are pretty, yeah, like some will be actually not so hard and some are super hard, and you have no distinction between like phasing out the difficulty. So at least for myself, like if I'm going to try one of the harder ones in the gym, I just don't know, like, is this worth trying? Is this within my abilities at all? So I think having it ranked out, the difficulty like phased out like that is really nice, but also just the amount of boulders at that level is not something that we normally see, and every boulder is really well set and like the movement is really good. It forces you to be precise and strong in different positions and intentional about your hip positioning. Like you can't get up them by being like sloppy and just strong. You have to be good at climbing. And I think that's like, it's just a density of like quality and difficulty that doesn't really exist elsewhere.
What's that?
Super, super cool to hear.
Yeah, I think there's a Magnus Midfu did a video on bead pump for for those of you who have, want to check it out and see exactly what Chloe's talking about. He really goes through all the grades, and it is quite amazing how hard they set there. And are you rolling solo? Like, are you with a trainer as well in Japan, or you just have a crew of just crushers?
This week I'm here by myself. Next week, the U.S. team coach will be here kind of separately. He'll be helping Sean and Mio set their gym, but hopefully I'll do a couple sessions with him while he's in town, and I'll do their competition that they're having for their gym opening as well. So a couple fun things. But this week, just hanging by myself, doing my thing.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah.
I'm sure Tyler's got a ton of training questions now.
Oh, I've got a million training questions, as always. I don't even know if we've got time to get into all of them. I think what I want to follow on is, you're somebody who's been competing for a very long time. You've competed at essentially every level that exists in climbing. Basim and I both really care a lot about the local climbing scene and the growth of the sport. But I think we also both really care about how gyms take care of the athletes. So something I ask a lot of people is, when you're in ISO or when you're traveling for a competition, is there anything that gyms can do to better support the athletes besides the biggest cash purse they can afford? Whether that's like things to be provided in ISO or other considerations that make it more worthwhile for you to travel to a gym to compete?
Yeah. I think you brought it up. The big one that will get people to come is like the cash purse. It's important because there aren't that many opportunities to make money in climbing, and that's a big one. Apart from that, like, it's always nice to have perks. Like, if I don't know, if you're having like snacks and water and ISO, that's always nice. If comps or gyms are able to provide like accommodation for the athletes in some regard, whether they are able to get an Airbnb, but also even if like the owners or whoever personally have space where the athletes can stay, I think that's always helpful. But that always just comes down to like funds. It's expensive to come to compete, so like if any part of that is taken care of, it definitely ups the incentive. It makes it so we don't have to like win to pay for the travel. Like, it's always a risk when you're competing to fly somewhere or like commit to traveling somewhere, because there's a chance that you just won't make your money back and you'll lose money by going there. So that's like definitely part of the consideration of like which events we attend. But I think other things that are just nice. I really like what Method did was like giving us the opportunity to teach some clinics after the event. That also makes it more worthwhile to just come out and at least guarantee that we'll like be able to make up the cost of traveling and showing up to the event or something like that. So that's always nice. So anything that can kind of help mitigate those expenses is always really appreciated, and just makes like the experience feel a little less stressful maybe, but also just like more worthwhile. You don't feel like you're taking really any risks by coming out. So those things are always nice.
I mean, that's a win-win. Those workshops,
Yeah.
everybody wins on that. So that's great.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really nice way to do it, where like any gyms, that doesn't really cost the gyms anything, and kind of softens the like weight on the athletes for sure in terms of committing to coming out. So Yeah.
And also just such a great opportunity for the community there, especially if it's, an area where there's not as much of a concentration of professional climbers or super high level climbers. I'm sure that there is somebody whose climbing life. I'm sure there's multiple people whose climbing lives are changed from just attending your clinic, and that's so good for the sport and the community. It's awesome. I've hogged all the questions. What do you got to say?
So I mean, like, just getting into the, I don't like to talk money too much, but like just getting into the fact that there isn't a lot of money in climbing, and like all these, a lot of people don't understand, from a professional standpoint, how little money there is in climbing. And they just think it's like every other sport. And, and then so I mean, I know you don't know this, but like, what we are trying to do here at Betabreakerz is grow the sport. And I don't charge for our live stream services. Like, we don't charge the gyms for what we do because we just want to kind of put that out there, because last thing I'm going to do is take money from that wonderful cash purse. But then like when you start getting into just thinking about like World Cups and like Olympics, most people out there just assume that USA Climbing pays for everything. They pay for all of your and whatever. And that's not the case. And I don't want to point any fingers, but it's simply because there's not enough money in the sport. And then so just like, what is your take on that? Like, you see there being a future, where there will be money in the sport? Please say yes, because like otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely hope so. It's, I think the sport itself is obviously growing. Like, we're seeing new gyms pop up all the time. I think when I was growing up, like in high school, and I would tell people that I climbed, I'd get a lot of people like, "What is that? What, you climb mountains and stuff?" And now I feel like it's a lot. Maybe I hang around like a lot of people who obviously know what climbing is, but I think even outside of that, people kind of recognize like, "Oh, I saw that on TV," or "I saw that at the Olympics." Like, they at least kind of get an idea of what you're talking about. So I think the sport and just visibility in the sport in general is growing. So I hope that brings more money and more opportunity there. There's also, I think, like the cash purses and the amount of gyms and festivals that are offering like bigger purses, in my impression, seems to have grown, in at least since comps came back after COVID. I feel like there have been more competitions offering like bigger cash purses kind of consistently, and some that are trying to offer like way bigger cash purses, which we're seeing like kind of pop up or hearing whispers about. So that will be great. Yeah, in terms of the circuit, like, I would hope that we could get to a point where everyone who's attending a World Cup is being funded to be there. Like, personally, the only year that I qualified for funding from USA Climbing was in 2020. Um, and we all know what
No, no.
happened in 2020. There weren't any World Cups, and after that, it's been kind of on and off, depends on the event. But for the most part, it's been like pretty much self-funded, which is definitely difficult and kind of adds to the pressure of being there a little bit, of knowing that um, like, you are going to lose money by being there. Even if you win the competition, it probably won't. The cash prize from winning the World Cup might not even fund your travel to be there. So, um, I think at the very least, it shows that people who are there probably really want to be there. But I would hope that we'd get to a place where everyone can be funded to be there. And I think, yeah, it just like you said, comes down to there not being enough money in the sport in general. Um, but I feel like that's growing, and I hope it keeps moving in the right direction for sure.
That's the ultimate goal. And, grow the sport, grow visibility, and just keep it going. And so I know you're talking about, I think it's Punk Rock is the $50,000 cash prize.
Yeah, there was one in France as well, back in December. So there's we're kind of getting there. There are a few events that are able to put up big prices, which is cool.
Yeah, yeah. And so I don't want to take up any more of your time. I know you're just waking up, right? So it's
Yes.
8, 9. So yeah, we've been chatting for almost an hour, and it's been wonderful. Like, I mean, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your very busy schedule to connect with us, and then just really just chat about what you've been doing and what's done in the future. And so, actually, do
Yeah,
you?
on the topic. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say like Tyler likes to on the topic of money.
Yeah, no. On the topic of finances in the sport, would you like to plug any brands that are supporting you at the moment?
Yeah, I actually recently joined the Adidas 510 squad, so I'm really psyched about that and very thankful to them. Working with Friction Labs as well and Turtlebox Audio, which if you're looking for a speaker, get yourself a Turtlebox. They're great, and I'm not just saying that; they're awesome. So
Okay, so any codes or anything so that if someone actually does check this out and no, we're just okay.
no, but just they're cool companies. So if you feel like supporting any of them, I'd highly recommend.
Worth them as they support our athletes.
Yeah,
That's really what it
and
is.
yeah. And we'll put this in the description. When I say we, Basim, we'll put this in the description. But where can people find you online and support you that way?
Yeah, so I think Instagram's the best way. My Instagram is just my first name, Cloe.Coscoy. So I try to share some content, follow along with some of my training, a lot of different climbing videos and stuff, but also just what I'm getting up to with friends and whatnot. But yeah, I also do like a fair amount of private coaching. So if you're ever like in the Salt Lake area and interested in that, you can feel free to shoot me a message. But I'm always psyched to do that. I enjoy it quite a bit. So let me know.
Awesome.
Yeah, really cool, Chloe. Thank you so much for talking to us. It's great. Congratulations again on especially on the World Cup semis.
Yeah.
Must have felt really great, and we're all rooting for you through the season. Um, Wishing you happy training in Japan, and I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean that's it. Thank you for your time, and just also for everyone out there watching who've actually made it to the end. Thank you for joining, and if you enjoyed the video, you guys know what to do: like, subscribe, all of those wonderful things. And then yeah, we'll catch you guys on the next one. We'll see you soon.
Sweet. Yeah. Thank you guys. It's been great chatting.
Thank you, Chloe.
Thanks.
Take care.